Hello and welcome back to JVCTR. For those that are new, my name is Johnny and today you join me at Silverstone, and as you can see behind me, we're racing a set of Citroen C1s. The C1 24-hour endurance race is started by a couple of formation laps in grid order before a rolling start commences the race. All teams go through a qualifying round the night before to determine their starting position, and the SCC team qualified in 46th after a slight bump. Okay, so we will start the video in the pits where it's a little less windy than it was out there, and as you can see the SCC team are behind me. We're probably about half hour to an hour into the race now. Fortunately, no issues with the car as of yet, but going forwards I'll just document everything as it happens.
And at just over half hour into the race, we had our first casualty. The Perry's team desperately trying to get their bumper back on whilst the scrutineers looked on. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite as simple to fix as the team had first thought, so they got it into the garage, got the bumper back on and sent the car back out again, all within around 30 minutes. The SCC car had been doing its best to stay out of trouble for the first few hours, as there was over 100 cars on the grid at the start. As a result of this, we dropped a fair few positions, but by 7 PM we made it up to 60th, which meant we got on the timing screens. However, minutes later, one of the teams we were sharing our garage with came in with some slight damage. They'd rolled it. A quick fuel up on the car before it was all hands on deck to get the car back up to scratch and back out there to race. Whilst all the excitement was happening in the area motorsport garage, most teams were coming in for their first pit stop, and so the SCC teams began their preparations. In our garage, SF Racing were the first to come in for a tyre change and refuel before quickly getting their car back out there. Next, it was our turn.
So there we have it, that is the first pit stop done. That was a simple fuel and tyre change, and I think the guys did it pretty damn quickly if I'm honest. But actually everyone's pretty chill, as you can see behind me, everyone's just relaxing. So hopefully it's another 2 hours until we run out of fuel and we'll do the same thing again. But we'll see how it goes.
Shortly after, the area motorsport team had prepared their car and got it back out on track in less than an hour, which I think is pretty incredible. For the next few hours, there were a fair few safety cars which held up the race, but all 4 teams in our garage were fairly relaxed at this moment, so everyone was chilling and just watching the race.
Now, thanks to a safety car and quite a few teams pitting, we finally got up to 30th position, which makes us onto the top page of the board. We've just heard a couple of beats from the other side of the pit wall, so we think Rob might be coming in, so we're just getting ready behind us, you might be able to see. For the next pit stop and driver change.
As you can see here, the weather turned sour, it was cold, really wet, and it was night time. Everyone was starting to feel just that little bit tired. Night wore on and the race was plagued by safety car after safety car after safety car, but that said, it seemed to be doing the SCC team very well as they climbed up the leaderboard. Pretty much on the stroke of midnight, another significant casualty had been patched up and returned to the race. As you can see, the windscreen had been cut out, there's no rear door, so the wind and rain is passing straight through the car. An absolute dedication by this team. As per race rules, you're not allowed communication with the driver, so there was a fair bit of waiting around for the driver to come in. But when the driver does come in, all hell breaks loose in the pits. First up is a refuel, and race rules state that all doors to the car must be shut and the car must only be touched by the person filling it.
Get the door shut.
For this pit stop, we were able to get away with just adding fuel as the wet track had kept the tyres in reasonable condition. And then when all the excitement of the pit stop was over, the team go back to trying to stay awake, which is not that easy at 1 AM. Again, the night wore on, the rain kept coming, and there were more and more safety cars. By 3:30 AM, the SCC car had performed marvellously despite the horrid conditions, climbing up to an absolutely incredible 18th place. The only issue we had here is it was just before the next driver change, so the pit crew began psyching themselves up for a super quick pit stop, and then they had the dreaded wait for the driver to come in. Once fueling had been completed, it was time for our first four-wheel change. The guys did absolutely brilliantly getting the car back out in less than 10 minutes, which included the painfully slow fueling process.
So the time has just ticked past 5 AM, and that means we're about halfway through the race, which is, yeah, it's pretty hard. I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite tired right now. But generally speaking, hopefully everyone will start to perk up. As you can see, the SCC Performance team at least, things are looking pretty good on the Western Front. Everyone's nice and calm, chilling out, just relaxing. The TV is on, and yeah, generally it's quite a nice atmosphere. So next driver change is due in about half an hour's time. We're hoping no tyres this time because it's nice and wet, so just chug in the fuel and head straight back out again.
As dawn broke, more casualties entered the pits. SF Racing had unfortunately had quite a serious shunt that had bent their rear beam out of shape. Meanwhile, Area Motorsport were back in for a fill-up and a four-wheel tyre change. And at this time of the morning, tempers were starting to fray and frustration was setting in for some teams. Another car that had rolled in the early hours was being started up and filled the pits with some oily smoke, but nevertheless, the car was sent back out to continue the race. Just under 2 hours after SF Racing entered the pits for repair, the team were getting ready to send the car back out, but unfortunately they identified further damage to the front of the car which required a replacement steering rack and track rod ends. Incredibly, these were all replaced in the garage, and the team even carried out an alignment check before sending the car back out. Meanwhile, Area Motorsport had rolled the car again and the car was back in for repairs. There was a fair bit of hammering, and the car was released back into the race a few minutes later. Shortly after, the Perry's team were in for a broken steering wheel height adjuster, although this did give the team a chance to update the graphics on the car with some helpful advice for the other drivers. Thankfully, throughout all the drama of the morning, the SCC team managed to stay out of trouble, sustaining only minor panel damage. By midday, the SCC were holding on to a healthy 21st place when the car needed another 2 front tyres.
Yeah.
By 1:30 in the afternoon, the SCC team had moved up to the top 20. Now, back in the pits, it was apparent that the 24 hours was starting to take its toll on some cars. The yellow car next door had rolled again, been straightened out by their team, and was sent back out just prior to our most complex pit stop yet.
Okay, so we've just done our most in-depth pit stop yet. We needed to change all 4 tyres, we needed to check the oil. Thankfully the oil was okay, which is kind of amazing considering how long this car has been running for now. And then we also needed to switch out the camera because obviously that's a regulation that we've got to film everything just in case the marshals need anything. And it's pretty much it. So we managed to get the driver switched over. Robert Oldman, the owner of SCC, is now out there driving for us now. Hopefully we won't see him for another 2 to 3 hours, and then we're on to another pit stop. So that's our final driver change done. Front 2 tyres were changed the fuel, or added fuel I should say, and now we're kind of at the mercy of our last driver. So it's all getting rather tense in here. We actually managed to gain places on our last pit stop, so we're now up to 15th position. We're just relying on James just to hold it together out there, and I think we'd be pretty happy with 15th if we can stay around there. So I'll get back to the action.
The afternoon continued with some seriously close racing out on track when finally the 24-hour ordeal for the cars was over. The parade at the end was really quite emotional when you start to realise the amount of abuse that these cars have taken for the past 24 hours. And the single-mindedness of the teams that have been running them to ensure that the cars made it to the very end.
Okay, so there you have it. That is 24 hours in a Citroen C1. That's the car, that's the team. I think they did great. We ended up coming 14th. It was wicked. So we'll just end the day with a team photo. Come on guys, give us a smile.
There goes a sight from my soul.